I woke up to the sound of scratching under my bed in the middle of the night. At first, I thought maybe it was just my cat, Mittens, trying to get comfortable or find a toy that had rolled under there. But Mittens was curled up next to me, sound asleep. The scratching continued like something was scraping its nails back and forth across the hardwood floor. I sat up slowly, holding my breath. It was so dark I couldn't see anything. I reached over and turned on my bedside lamp. The scratching stopped. I leaned over the side of the bed and peered underneath. Nothing but dust bunnies. "You're hearing things," I mumbled to myself. But just as I started to lie back down, the scratching started up again, louder this time. Long, slow scrapes accompanied by a strange clicking noise, almost like tapping on the wood. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Something was under there. As quietly as I could, I slid out from under the covers and crouched down beside the bed. My heart pounded as I steeled my nerves and lifted the bedskirt. At first, I didn't see anything in the dim light, but as my eyes adjusted, I saw it. Pressed flat against the hardwood was the pale, gaunt face of an old woman, staring back at me. Her sunken eyes and hollow cheeks were framed by long, straggly wisps of white hair. Behind thin, cracked lips were rows of jagged yellow teeth. I screamed and stumbled backward, startled by the hideous visage under my bed. The old woman let out an unearthly hiss and scuttled deeper into the shadows. I scrambled to my feet and fumbled for the baseball bat I kept near my closet. "Who's there? What do you want?" I yelled, trying to keep the fear out of my voice. No response except for that unnerving scrape clicking. Keeping my back against the wall, I inched around the bed and flipped the overhead light on. The harsh fluorescent glare revealed nothing. Breathing hard, I got down on my hands and knees and shined my phone flashlight into the dark space underneath the bed frame. Nothing there. But how? I jumped as Mittens let out a startled meow. She was staring wide-eyed at the closet door, which was now cracked open. I always kept it shut. Gripping the bat tight, I tapped the door. It creaked slowly open. My closet was empty, except for the faint, shuffling sounds in the very back, behind my hanging clothes. As I reached for the light switch, an explosive crash made me cry out. I turned to see my bedroom window had been smashed inward. Jagged glass littered the floor, the curtains fluttering in the cold night breeze. What the hell was happening? Just then, I heard a chilling giggle come from the depths of my closet, followed by a gravelly voice. "We're here!" A small, gnarled hand slid out from between the clothes, long yellow nails scraping the wall. Letting out a shriek, I rushed forward and slammed the closet shut, dragging a chair in front to block it. I had to get out of here. Racing to the bedroom door, I turned the handle only to find it stuck tight. I pulled with all my strength, but it wouldn't budge. Trapped. Pounding on the door, I yelled for help. Scratching and scraping responded from inside the walls, like claws digging into the drywall. Fiendish cackling erupted all around me as I dropped the bat and covered my ears. Suddenly, the lights flickered out, plunging me into darkness. I backed away from the door, hands outstretched until I bumped into something behind me. Whirling around, I came face to face with the ghostly old woman, a rotted grin twisting her features. She let out an unnatural scream that rang in my ears. I shoved past her and made a break for the window. The old hag grasped at me with gnarled hands, her sharp nails raking my skin. I scrambled through the broken window, dripping blood. Outside, I gasped for breath, scanning the yard for any sign of those things. A chilling chorus of giggles and scraping sounds drifted out from the open window above me. They knew I had escaped. My skin crawled at the thought of those nightmarish creatures still lurking within my home. I needed help. Keeping one eye on the house, I ran to my neighbors and pounded on their door until Mr. Collins finally opened up. But when I frantically tried to explain what was happening, he just shook his head. "Son, you're confused. Why don't you come in and lie down?" "What?" I didn't understand. I begged him to listen, to call for help, but he refused. When the flashing lights appeared at the end of the street, dread sank into my stomach. I took off running. I didn't stop until I reached the edge of town. The streets were empty, the windows of the shops dark. My feet ached and my lungs burned. I paused to catch my breath. Far off in the distance, I could hear the wail of police sirens searching for me. A scraping sound came from the alleyway to my right. I froze. A pair of glowing eyes watched me from the shadows. The creatures had followed me even here. I took off again, trying to ignore the stabbing pain in my side. I ran until the sounds of the town had faded completely. Nothing but my panicked breaths and the crunch of gravel beneath my feet. When I finally stopped, doubled over wheezing, I found myself in a deserted parking lot. A lone streetlight flickered above me. The lot belonged to a small, run-down chapel set back from the road. I stumbled my way to the front doors, praying they would open. To my relief, the right door groaned inward. The chapel was completely empty, with rows of wooden pews lined up before a darkened pulpit. Moonlight shone through the stained glass windows, illuminating dancing motes of dust. I collapsed into one of the pews, trying to slow my racing heart. I jerked awake sometime later to an unnatural silence. I blinked against the pale light streaming in through the windows. It was dawn. For a brief, blissful moment, I thought the horrors of last night had just been a terrible nightmare. Then I heard it. The oh-so-familiar scraping of long nails against wood. I sat bolt upright. There, perched on the back of the pew in front of me, was a hunched-over figure, its face obscured by stringy hair. Pointed fingers tapped out a chaotic rhythm as a rattling breath shook its frame. I scrambled backward, nearly falling over the pew behind me. The creature twisted its neck with a crack, slowly raising its head to meet my gaze. My heart stopped. Its face was my own, sunken and cadaverous, lips peeled back in a gruesome smile full of rotted teeth. I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. It released an inhuman cackle and scuttled crab-like over the pew after me. I turned and ran, weaving through the rows of seats. I could hear the thing giving chase, letting out shrieks of depraved laughter. Just before I reached the front doors, I risked a glance back. A whole pack of twisted, misshapen creatures crawled over the pews, claws outstretched, mouths gaping excitedly. I burst through the doors into the hazy morning light. The parking lot was still abandoned. In the distance, I spotted a pickup truck driving down the lonely stretch of road. Waving my arms wildly, I called for help. The truck slowed and pulled into the lot. As I limped desperately toward it, the driver's side door opened and a heavy-set, bearded man stepped out. Hope soared in my chest, but it plummeted just as quickly when I met his eyes. They were a milky white, with no trace of iris or pupil. The rest of his face was marred by peeling, gangrenous flesh. He flashed a grin of broken teeth. "We've been waiting for you," he gurgled. Dread coursed through me. The driver joined the others in their pursuit, their rotted limbs propelling them toward me at an uncanny speed. I turned and fled blindly. Their excited shrieks followed close behind. I felt razor claws graze the back of my shirt. Up ahead, I spotted rusted train tracks cutting through the overgrown field. I poured every ounce of energy into my burning legs. The wooden planks of the tracks pounded beneath my feet. I could see the creatures fanning out as they drew nearer, preparing to surround me. I followed the rails desperately, praying to catch sight of an oncoming train. Then I heard it, the blare of a horn. Risking a glance back, I saw the engine barreling down the tracks, its massive, grinding wheels spitting up gravel. The creatures' grotesque faces twisted in fury, and they scuttled faster, claws outstretched toward me. I forced my legs faster, lungs screaming. The train was almost upon me, the horn blaring louder. At the last second, I dove to the side, hitting the gravel hard and rolling. The shrieking horrors pursuing me never had a chance. The train plowed through them in a screech of grinding metal. I caught a glimpse of their twisted bodies, being dragged under the crushing wheels before squeezing my eyes shut. After what seemed an eternity, the roar of the train faded into the distance. I lay gasping for breath, every inch of my body throbbing. Slowly, hesitantly, I opened my eyes and sat up. I turned and scanned the tracks. No sign of the creatures. Just a lingering stench of rot in the air. They were gone. I didn't know how long I sat there next to the tracks, waiting for my pulse to slow. The horrors I had witnessed plagued my mind. I knew I couldn't stay out here. Standing on shaky legs, I followed the gravel road, hoping it might lead to help. The sun rose higher in the sky, warming my chilled skin. After walking for what felt like miles, I came upon a small farmhouse tucked back from the road. It appeared quiet and still. I almost cried out in joy when I saw the old truck parked beside it. This could be my chance to escape. As I crept closer, the front door creaked open. My breath caught in my throat. An elderly farmer stepped out, wiping his hands on a rag. I hesitated, uncertain if I could trust anyone after what I'd seen. When the old man spotted me, he smiled kindly and waved. "Morning there. You all right, son? Look like you've been to hell and back." His voice sounded genuine, free of malice. I decided to take a chance. Slowly, I approached, asking if I could use his phone. I needed help. The old farmer listened gravely as I described the impossible horrors of this endless night. When I finished, he nodded. "I believe you, son. Come inside, we'll call the sheriff." I nearly sobbed in relief. Safe within the simple farmhouse, I sank into a chair by the old rotary phone. The farmer stood watching me, hands folded over his denim overalls. I smiled thankfully at him as I reached for the phone. He continued staring with that same kindly expression as I lifted the receiver. "You were lucky to escape them," he said in his gentle drawl. "Not many folk do." I froze, the receiver pressed to my ear. No dial tone. Dropping the useless phone, I looked up at the old farmer in dawning terror. He blinked back at me, his eyes now a familiar milky white. "We'll be keeping you with us now," he whispered. Behind his kindly facade, I saw his cheeks had sunken into mottled, decaying flesh. I screamed, but no one heard me. No one but them.